Welcome back to the Spector Creative channel, and if you are a frequent viewer here, you're probably into toys, games, collectibles, and all things fun. Either that or you're here for the hieroglyphics, but that happens on Sunday mornings. Today I want to talk a little bit about traditional toy play and the juxtaposition of this to the need in the toy industry to constantly innovate. I've been in the toy industry as a professional for over 20 years, and as a lifelong toy fan, well, those two worlds sometimes tend to combine and create interesting, shall we say, discussion points. Now, there are a lot of toys out there that never go out of style. That you can pick up a toy that was created 50, 60, 70 years ago, and it's just as much fun to play with today. Yet at the same time, the toy industry as a whole is constantly innovating, meaning there has to be a hot new toy every single year. And a lot of this has to do with retail and the way toys are sold and the way toys are marketed and the competition to even have Toy of the Year. I mean, heck, if you put Baby Yoda out there on his toy, there's a good chance you're going to get a lot of media attention. So every toy should have a Baby Yoda. And of course, there's no lack of talking heads out there talking about what toys are on trend and what toys are breakthrough, and that's kind of part of the issue. I'm all for diversity. I'm all for inclusiveness. But if you look at some of the toys that have been created the past few years that are specifically about things like inclusiveness, like, say, Barbie in different body types, or the fact that Mattel created a toy line of, genderless Barbie dolls that you could make into any character you want. Again, awesome idea on paper. Their whole creatable world that you could, put on your own head, your own outfits, your own hair. It could be a boy, it could be a girl, it could be, well, whatever your imagination makes it, and toys should be about the imagination. Well, then the real question is, if these toys were so innovative, why are they not selling? The reason that they barely lasted a season is because this is not the way children play. This is a adult trend to have genderless toys versus timeless toys that never go out of style don't address these kind of sort of social phenomena. I'm not saying society shouldn't move forward and we shouldn't be having these conversations, but there's a reason that not every trend should be a toy. I mean, heck, if it was, we would have children planking in the middle of the street every day, right? No, this is not an appropriate trend to turn into a toy line. So, the latest trend that seems to be dominating the toy industry as far as innovation is environmental packaging concerns. Now, again, I am all pro coming up with better solutions to toy packaging that has less waste, that uses less plastic, that's better for the environment and the planet. Not being, anti-planet at all. Otherwise, Planetia will come and get me. But this tends to fall into the same category of a great idea on paper, but executionally, in the real world, it's kind of like not being able to see the forest through the trees. So let me give a few examples, both a modern and sort of a quasi-vintage example of this, and why sometimes things that feel like they should be on trend aren't always, in the real world, executionable. So you'll notice more and more there are toys with less packaging on shelf. Sometimes they're just tied down with twisties, but a lot of times that extra layer is missing. So, for example, this Hot Wheels set that used to come in a closed box with a window where you would see the vehicles, and, it was basically a square shape. Well, now it looks like something like this, as far as, one-to-one. It's not literally the same set, but I think you could see the comparison. There's no longer a box around it. It's now a sort of an L-shaped open tray with everything kind of blistered into either the bottom or the back. The idea is to reduce packaging, so there's less packaging used, it's better for the environment, and it's a better toy. Well, that's debatable, because part of the experience of getting a toy is receiving the toy as a child, right? And well, things that are oddly shaped are difficult to wrap. I worked for 2 years in toy packaging, and this was something that we constantly had to deal with, was oddly shaped toy boxes that parents in test groups would say, well, how am I supposed to wrap this? All right, yes, I know we have gift bags. Let's look at another example. So here is the Toon Squad action figure that's been making a lot of headlines around the country. And not at all because having to do with the movie, but because of this. And this is not just a one-off. There seems to be a phenomenon all around the country of people pulling this particular figure's head off and leaving the rest of the body. Now, regardless of whether or why people are doing this, and part of it is because of TikTok, but that's a whole other issue, the point is they can do this. The reason they can is because the head is not protected by packaging. It's too easy to remove. So yes, I know there's a TikTok trend to do this, which is weird, but that's a whole other issue. The point being, though, is the reduced packaging is what allows consumers access to the head that would normally never be able to be removed because it would be in a closed box. Let's look at an example from about 20 years ago. Everybody remember the Lord of the Rings line and how awesome it was that, well, they got a cave troll?
They have a cave troll.
Yep, one of my favorite toys too. But the problem with the cave troll toy from Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Rings was the packaging. One, it tended to dent at the top because of just how heavy the figure was, but more so, and a lot of us probably remember, more than one cave troll sitting on shelf without his face on. Why is this? Well, peeling rubber off of an object is really satisfying. If you've never tried it, you probably should. It's just one of those fun tactile things that's, like you could do it with a face mask. The tactile feeling of pulling on rubber and removing it is a very sets off a lot of dopamine, and it's very similar to other fidget toys like poppers, which replicates bubble wrap essentially. It's why we love popping bubble wrap. So having a figure in packaging with a rubber face that's easily removable, well, it seemed like a good idea in order to have a try-me and to have, sort of allow a child or a collector in the store to experience the toy, but it backfired because the lack of packaging protecting the toy allowed the toy to get damaged, so much so that the toy had to be redesigned and reissued with more packaging in a window box, purely to protect the toy from in-store damage. Sort of like the Space Jam figure back there with his head being pulled off. Same concept. Why do people do this? Because they can. So packaging is kind of like, that's kind of like the Avengers, right? It's not just there as part of the toy, it's there to protect the toy, to ensure it gets to the end user. Yes, the day after Christmas, there's going to be a lot of toy trash. And that's part of life. We should find new ways of packaging product or, making it so it's more environmentally friendly, but removing it entirely causes more problems. And part of the joy of giving a gift and receiving a gift is that moment of unwrapping it. And if packaging does not protect the toy from store to end user, well, then the packaging hasn't done its job. So obviously we want to innovate. Obviously we want to do things that are better for the environment. And I'm 150,000% for this. But when you're innovating just for the sake of innovating, that's part of the problem. And fundamentally in the toy industry, it's one of those things that keeps perpetuating itself year after year, where the industry wants to embrace the latest trends in pop culture or, just concepts that feel like they should be part of our society. It's great to have progress, but one needs to think about the sort of not just long-term consequences, but what are we innovating? If we're innovating toys, well, why are we doing that? Are we just trying to get a headline? Are we trying to get, newspapers to report on this latest trend that's going to go away in a year anyway? Again, looking back at things like the genderless Barbies or the different body Barbies. Well, that is why Spector Creative actually exists. Because my company is all about the emotional connection between toy and user. And that tends to be what lacks in the toy industry. So much that everyone is focused on, can we do it versus should we? There's a reason that timeless toys and timeless play patterns exist. And I love helping clients to unlock these emotional connections that never go away and are proven to work. Because when it comes to play and it comes to the enjoyment of toys, there are years and decades that show what works and what's a true hero in the toy aisle versus something that's sort of a flash in the pan, and maybe it'll get a headline this year, but it'll wind up on the clearance aisle next year. I hope this video was insightful. Please do share it with others and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I cannot wait to chat more toy with all of you. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.